Hello, everybody. Good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to another episode from Powered for SP3. He is all the way from New York, of course, the A side of the cassette, as I always say, the Oracle of professional wrestling. None other than, I was going to call you Mr. Pixel after the last couple of weeks, SP3, but he's here. He's in full picture this week. I can tell. Fingers crossed. SP3, how are you, my friend?
So, we're going to see a culmination of a whole bunch of feuds this Sunday, John, at AEW Revolution. But this Monday on Powered for SP3, the rivalry that has been spanning the globe for the past 2 weeks on Powered for SP3 of SP3 versus Wi-Fi is officially over. I have new Wi-Fi, so you could see me in full pixelation. This rivalry is over, but I am glad to be back here with you, John. Let's talk about some wrestling.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to see you, and obviously, hopefully that rivalry is finished. You know, I don't want to go a second round with it or anything like that. I don't want to call its bluff either, because I know what these things are like. But yeah, let's start with some wrestling news. Let's start from something that actually cropped up, I believe, last Wednesday out of the blue, I have to say. That nobody saw coming, and that is the Big Show signing with none other than AEW, and has got kind of a mixed reaction, I feel. I think from my point of view, and I was listening to yourself on the True Heel Heat podcast just recently, and I was listening to you and Top Guy, and I have to say I'm kind of like in the middle, because I feel like this is it's a good deal, but at the same time, are they not just pulling this into the TNA era? Are we not just seeing them pluck out anybody just to get a name? But I'm gonna let you take this away. But that's my personal take on this. I wasn't blown away. The only thing I was blown away about was the fact they kept it so undercover, and that's very seldom these days in wrestling.
I don't know how this could have not blown you away, sir. Like if you ask yourself, if you ask John Scott of February 2021, of before Wednesday, February 24th, I think it was, before Wednesday, February 24th, if you ask John Scott of February 23rd, 2021, do you think the Big Show will sign with anyone except for WWE? I'm pretty sure John Scott of February 23rd, 2021 would have said, no, that's ridiculous. And then February 24th happened. The world changed. I think this blew my mind, because Big Show is a WWE lifer in my mind a week ago. Like, I would not think Big Show would sign anywhere but AEW. Anywhere but WWE. But the reason why this is a good move is because AEW has given us enough faith to not think that this is going to be like TNA. The reason why it got its moniker and why people would leave WWE and everybody would feel, oh, TNA is going to sign them up and they're going to get this big push, is because it literally happened all the time. Like Jeff Jarrett was a mid-carder in the WWE in the Attitude Era. He became a main eventer in WCW, but he was one of their lower main eventers. And then he became Triple H meets Bruno Sammartino in TNA. Then you have someone like R-Truth, who is a WWE lifetime mid-carder. Anytime he's in WWE, he is firmly planted in the mid or the lower card. He goes to TNA, he becomes the first black NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Like, this is what happened all the time. You had the bigger names like Christian and Kurt Angle, who left WWE, went to TNA, became heavyweight champions. You had Jeff Hardy, Mr. Kennedy, years later, same thing. AEW has not given us that inclination. The people that have became champions from other organizations are completely different characters when you really look at them. The Chris Jericho who was putting people on the list is not the same as Le Champion Chris Jericho, who was the first ever AEW World Champion. Dean Ambrose, who was getting shots because the fans made him sick and looked like a dollar value Bane from Dark Knight Rises, is not the same as the baddest dude on the planet, John Moxley, cutting the great promos every single week. Cody, Legacy Cody, or Dashing Cody Rhodes, or Cody with the mask and the paper bags is not the same as the grandson of a plumber, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Like, these are distinct changes, and these are people that were in the prime of their career. With someone like the Big Show, he's more in line with the signing of Sting. Sting has not been in the main event picture. Sting has never even been in a main event segment for AEW on Dynamite. He's literally been in 5-minute segments. He got physical twice in the past almost 3 months that he's been with the organization. You have someone like Arn Anderson, who's placed as the coach of Cody Rhodes, has value to his role. Tully Blanchard, as the manager of FTR, elevated their act, and now it's going to be in his first televised national wrestling matchup in 30 years this Wednesday. The list goes on and on. Jake the Snake Roberts, Jim Ross, these guys that weren't being treated right for the legacy that they built in the wrestling industry in WWE, they left that company and went over to AEW, and I think that's the same with the Big Show. PW Insider reported that he was very unhappy with the way he was treated on Legends Night, the January 4th edition of Monday Night Raw, where he basically got talked down to by Randy Orton and literally had to act like he was 67-year-old Ric Flair and not a 7-foot-tall, 400-pound giant who has won the world title in the top 3 organizations of the Monday Night Wars, WWE, WCW, and ECW. He should not be the guy that Randy Orton gets to talk down to, like he will not get physical with him. Like, how did the Big Show become this like very fragile little legend? Like, I don't understand that. He should never have gotten to that point in WWE. So I 100% understand his feeling. He could still contribute in some way to the professional wrestling industry, and the future of professional wrestling in a lot of people's eyes is AEW. So this is a great move for both Big Show and AEW in my eyes.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'll take some of what you say there, but let me throw this one at you. What benefit is this mainly going to serve for AEW? That's my question here, because like Big Show, in his entire time in WWE, in my opinion, he has been underused badly. I mean, considering his size, there's nobody else like him. Yes, we've had Carly, but he couldn't move barely. The Big Show, when he was in his prime, I know he had that bad period for a short time, but then Paul Heyman took him under his wing. He had the ECW for a little while. He'd done the whole stuff with Brock Lesnar. I felt like they didn't treat him like a giant, like a fascination, a spectacle. Yes, they did some stuff with Floyd Mayweather, but in all, I mean, does WWE? What I'm trying to say is he that guy that's going to bring more eyes to an AEW? Is he somebody that fans of a younger generation are even going to know who the Big Show is and what he stands for? Or is he just offering more of a coaching role, like a mentor role backstage? What is the sole purpose? Because I get this makes perfect sense for Big Show. If he's fed up with WWE, and I'm surprised he didn't leave a long time ago before all this. I'm surprised he kept turning up, to be honest with you. But for AEW, why does this make sense?
because it's gonna Big Show is a draw. Like whether people want to realize it or not, or whether WWE realizes it or not, over the last couple of years, Big Show can draw eyes. There are people that have been professional wrestling fans 25 years ago who are lapsed fans from the Monday Night Wars who will see Big Show on their TV and say, "Oh, hey, that's the Giant," or "Hey, that's the Big Show." So I just think that Big Show he has some value, and he's gonna help the younger stars of AEW, especially the big man, when it comes to a Wardlow, a Luchasaurus. He could teach them how to work in the ring and how to be a big man in the ring. I do agree with you some that WWE didn't always value him as a giant or treat him like a giant, but like I said, that is WWE. That is not what AEW has inspired out of their fans. Like if they had gone, the last 2 years since their inception, treating their legends or their stars like WWE treats their stars, then I completely understand your thinking. The reason why I'm optimistic is because AEW have led me to be optimistic. The way they have treated stars, the way Goldust was treated towards the latter half of his run in WWE, when he was just a jobber to the stars or used as enhancement talent. In AEW, he's had a 5-star matchup, one of the greatest matchups that a lot of people have seen with Cody Rhodes. He's been in the highest drawing main event in Dynamite history against Brody Lee for the TNT Championship. He's been in a highly rated tag team blow off with the Butcher and the Blade, who are not stars, the level of even Goldust or Dustin Rhodes. So the AEW has gotten value out of him, and I think they can get the same out of the Big Show. There is money matchups for the Big Show. They can get the matchup that WWE never were able to do with him and Shaq. I think that's the immediate thing that they should do. Shaq versus Big Show, regardless of how we feel, it doesn't matter how we feel as hardcore fans. It's supposed to get casual fans to watch. And I guarantee you, casual fans will watch Shaq versus Big Show a whole of a lot more than they were going to watch this match on Wednesday with Shaq teaming up with Jade Cargill against Cody and Red Velvet, because Shaq and Big Show are two large dudes. It doesn't matter if the person was a fan 25 years ago when the Big Show first came on top of the wrestling industry. They're going to see Shaq next to a guy that sees eye to eye with him, which rare. And if anything could draw off of it, and you could say, yes, it's going to be a draw, just look at the NBA. Whenever Shaq was against a guy who could match his size, the NBA paid off significantly. As a rookie, Yao Ming was one of the highest drawing NBA games of the entire season against who? Shaquille O'Neal. Why? It wasn't because Yao Ming, yes, he was a national star in China, but the reason why us in America watched it in droves is because finally Shaq was seeing eye to eye with someone who could keep up with his size. And you could do that in AEW. AEW has inspired faith in me to be optimistic about these things. I know we guys, Mark Lloyd in the comments saying Big Show is no relevant. First of all, that's not a complete sentence. Second of all, Big Show, just 3-4 years ago, he put over Braun Strowman. Like Braun Strowman, the best he's ever looked was in the ring with Big Show. I think that by saying he's not relevant, you are completely forgetting the fact that he was very significant in the rise of Roman Reigns, of John Cena, of Brock Lesnar, of Braun Strowman. Regardless of how we think about, how WWE treated him or treated him like a legend, treated him like a giant, he was a part of one of the biggest celebrity matches of all time with Floyd Money Mayweather. Like I said, he's won every world championship, WWE, WCW, ECW. He was a part of the rise of all these major stars over the last 20 years. Big Show is very relevant and can be relevant. Don't let WWE's booking make you think otherwise.
Well, you make a great argument there. You should be his advocate, SP3, I think, after this. You've pointed a lot of things. It's funny about Cody because I was thinking in my head, remember that match they had at WrestleMania and that whole rundown they did of where he was kind of calling him out for embarrassments at WrestleMania and he'd never had anything, he'd done the whole stuff with Akibono and things like that. That's how I picture the Big Show, unfortunately. It's this guy that went off and done a film for kids. That didn't work out. He had a TV show on Netflix. That didn't work out. And, I just think, he's looking for like a good opportunity. Look, for him, it's fantastic. For me, I feel like if he's going to teach anybody stuff, man, he'll be teaching from his mistakes, because WWE did not do well by him overall. I think there was so much money wasted, in my opinion, on a guy like the Big Show, Paul White in WWE. And to be honest with you, I don't blame him for leaving. I think they've treated him like crap for the last 10 years at least, because they have not done anything with him. And like you say, he's put over people like Braun Strowman in the past, which is, good, and we get while he's there. But that's it. They just have him in for that, then he's gone again. And he's like looking the best he's probably looked since WCW, right? I mean, in terms of, I don't know what he's like getting about in the ring. I haven't seen him work a match in such a long time, so that would be hard to tell. But I think if it's a one-off kind of thing, that's how I would use him. I'd use him like Brock Lesnar. I'd use him, in those big matches. I wouldn't want to see him going out every week, because I just think that will devalue everything that they've got. But I suppose time will tell. Time will tell. Before we end this point, I've got to ask, like, this is a lot of people are saying this is a big significant signing because he's a WWE lifer. I don't really take much notice of whether he's a lifer or not, because I remember ages ago there was talk about Randy Orton kept hinting about he wanted to leave and join over. Now, if they've got Orton, I'd change my mind a bit, because I think he's more, he's been at that elite level for a long time. He's just got a terrible attitude half the time. I think that's what stops him in WWE. But if he went over, I'd be really looking at it. But I kind of feel like, we've seen these moves before, even in TNA days. Look, I thought Kurt Angle was a massive signing for them back in the day. I thought that was the one that was going to do it, because he was, at the time, he was the wrestling machine. They put him in stuff with Joe and AJ, and I wanted them to enhance the guys we'd never seen on WWE TV. But what did they do? They just kept bringing legend after legend in of old WWE guys, including Hogan, arguably the biggest name in wrestling. And, look where that ended up. So I would like to, I don't want it to kind of be SP3 where AEW, like, if you're released from WWE, we're just going to sign you. I don't really want that to be the case. I want them to be, I suppose, a little bit more picky. But do you think they can afford to be picky? Or do you think that if someone's out of contract, they're going to go, you know what, you're an active wrestler, you've been on WWE TV, so we'll have you?
I think they have been picky already, because we saw WWE release 40% of their workforce last April, and AEW didn't sign all those guys. They signed a Miro. They brought in a Tay Conte. They brought in a Matt Cardona, and he was only here for a couple of weeks, and then they was like, no, we don't have any use for you. So I think they've already been picky, and I think that the Big Show is honestly more significant than Randy Orton. Like, Randy Orton is never going to sign anywhere. Like, the tease of Randy Orton going to AEW was just that. It was just a tease for Orton to get more money. This one with Big Show, this one is significant because he was unhappy. And how many times do we hear about people being unhappy in WWE and feeling like they have nowhere else to go? We just saw Shinsuke Nakamura re-sign with WWE. We just saw Cesaro re-sign with WWE. Riddles re-sign with WWE. And over the past year, we've heard about all of those guys being underutilized or being underrated in WWE. But they felt that they were in a good enough place or will get that opportunity. But if they are in a place like Big Show where they feel unhappy, they feel like they're not going to get the contract that they deserve right now, they have a viable option. Big Show going to AEW makes AEW more of a realistic option for these guys like a Ricochet, like a Andrade, like a Aleister Black, who are being mistreated, being underutilized for what they are as performers. Now AEW is that much more of a distinct possibility for them, because they just saw a former WWE champion, a former WrestleMania main eventer, a former top guy in WWE go over. I don't think people realize how significant the role is. No, the Big Show is not going to have 101 dream matches. Honestly, I don't think the Big Show is going to be booked like Brock Lesnar. I think the Big Show is going to be booked like pre-1983 Andre the Giant. They're going to treat him like a special attraction, which he is, and they're going to build up to big time matches for him, whether that's on a special edition of Dynamite or whether that's on pay-per-view. And bringing him in as on the role of commentary on their new show, AEW Dark Elevation, I think if they made the announcement of this new show by itself, no one would be talking about it. But they were smart enough to say, everybody's going to talk about the Big Show signing with AEW. Let's bring him in as a commentator on our new show. So all the eyes that are going to be watching for what they're going to do with Big Show and AEW, they're going to watch this new show. It brings eyes that wouldn't already have been there. There's eyes that don't watch AEW Dark on a regular basis on Tuesday, but they are going to watch Elevation when it premieres Monday, March 15th. So that already shows the value of Big Show, that people are actually talking about this show. So that's a smart way to do it. They just need to smartly book the Big Show and make his star power enhance other things for the company.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I'll leave it there. Time will tell, SP3. Time will tell. But before we move on to the next subject, I just want to throw out one more thing. And this is like, because I'm not throwing you a diabolical question this week. I'm saving that for next week. So you're going to get an even worse one next week. But I want to ask you this from just out there as a question. AEW, I keep seeing people say, if AEW really want to make a statement, the one guy that is possibly available who is going to cost them some big bucks but would get them some serious eyes, who's a proven draw, is Brock Lesnar. Now, would Tony Khan really be in a position to get him, or do you think that that's never going to happen and that ambition isn't, like, they'll push it so far, we know they've got the money, but they don't want to push it that far? Do you think they bring in a guy like Lesnar who's proven goods?
Do I see the value in them bringing in Brock Lesnar? Of course, because Brock Lesnar is one of the more legitimate draws in professional wrestling today. Would I see? I mean, that's the only thing I can say. I don't think they're actively trying to get someone like a Brock Lesnar. It doesn't seem to. It doesn't even seem like they're actively like bringing in people that are just released from WWE. Like, literally, Tony Khan did an interview with Wrestling Observer where they told him that Selena Vega had just been through her 90-day non-compete clause and that she can talk with AEW. He didn't know that before he did that interview. So it just seems like they're trying to focus on what the people that they already have in-house. And when someone like a Big Show becomes available, if they can find an immediate position for him that enhances other things in the company, like they did with Big Show, bringing him on commentary for AEW Dark Elevation, then they're going to do that. I don't think they're actively looking for guys right now because they have enough guys on their books, and there's plenty of guys that deserve more opportunities and more, a higher elevation to reach on the card on Dynamite and Dark, like a Miro, like a Santana and Ortiz. So I think they're going to focus on their guys for right now, but when they can pick and choose the certain people to bring in, if one of those guys is a Brock Lesnar and they have a position for him immediately, I think they can, and I think it would be a smart decision.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. I just feel like sometimes you're right, they've got a massive roster, and I feel like, rather than wasting sometimes this money, why don't you just put all this money in? All right, you might not get 5 wrestlers, but you'll get one who, for love nor money, WWE could never seem to control. He seems like he could say what he wanted on the mic. That's why he was probably one of the guys that's always over when he comes back. Like, it didn't seem to matter how many times Seth beat him or Roman or whatever. Every time the guy comes back, he was so protected that Brock was just a draw. And you even to like the most diehard fan that isn't sometimes a wrestling fan, they just watch it for Brock because they think, oh, maybe he'll actually smack someone for real like he did with Braun a couple of years ago. And there's that mystery about him sometimes. And I feel like if maybe not now because we haven't got fans, so maybe waiting for that opportunity as well. But like if Brock Lesnar is available, like where he's not been for a while, WWE doesn't seem too bothered about getting him back at the moment because they're going to put all their eggs in one basket with Lashley, I'm sure, in that role. Lesnar would be my guy while he's still active. Get him there, get him to put over your Kenny Omega and whoever else, because you wouldn't want him on telly every week, but you wouldn't sign Lesnar for that. Just want him in those couple of big pay-per-views. But we will see. I'm sure money will talk in the Brock Lesnar camp. That's for sure. It always does.
Brock has to
Sticking
be
with
available.
AEW, go on, my friend.
He has to be
What's that?
available though, and I don't think he is available to
They
AEW.
could maybe they'll do it in the maybe they have the compound match. We haven't seen that yet. That compound is built up in Canada with the crazy walls and all the rest of it. Maybe they'll do it in there. They'll just say, look, we'll bring the cameras. You know, you can go out in your hunting gear and we'll do it like that. It'll just be Brock Lesnar with a gun pointed at, you know, particular wrestlers. That'll be the match. That's the next gimmick match right there, people.
There you go.
Compound. Sticking with AEW, my friend. AEW Women's World Championship Eliminator. Tell us about this. And am I right in thinking there was some people not happy about? Was this the deal where some people couldn't see it properly or something?
Yeah, basically they had their special on BR Live yesterday for the semifinals for the US bracket as well as the finals for the Japan bracket. And apparently the feed wasn't available in some international markets. So they had to put the matches on their YouTube channel. I think that you know, I'm kind of in the middle on this whole situation. I know people were very quick to be like, oh, this is why you should have put all the matches on your television show on Dynamite, or you should have put the matches on Dark. But this was a situation where AEW was trying to expand their exposure on this app, which does televise and stream their pay-per-views, you know, a week before Revolution. So they were kind of just building up momentum for a week's time when it'll be available on the same app for pay-per-view AEW Revolution. So I get them doing that, but I do also see the perspective of maybe they should have put a little bit more of the US bracket matches on television, because necessarily like something like last week's AEW Dynamite, do you really need Orange Cassidy, or 2 weeks ago Orange Cassidy versus Luther on an episode of Dynamite? Not necessarily. It really wasn't needed. You really could have replaced that with another match, maybe that you didn't do on this past week, John Moxley versus Ryan Nemeth. Maybe you just do the Moxley promo and then you save that time that went to the match on one of the US bracket matches. So there is a lot of ways that they could have worked this out, but they are on the road to AEW Revolution, which is like I think an 8 or 9 match card at this point already with a week to go. And they have been trying their best to kind of build everything on that show, as well as this Wednesday, which is their Crossroads edition of Dynamite. It's not your typical go home show. This is a big time Wednesday Dynamite for them, with Shaq in a big time match in his first professional wrestling matchup. So you know there's going to be casual fans watching. So you have to build up to that as well. So they have so many other things that they were trying to build. So they decided to kind of put the AEW Women's World Championship Eliminator on BR Live, and it didn't work out. As far as the actual product and actually what we've been seeing from the AEW Women's World Championship Eliminator, I think it's been really great. It's exposed me to a whole bunch of ladies that I wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. Maki Ito might be my favorite women's wrestler in the world. She is a former pop singer. She's a former pop star in Japan who became a wrestler, and all she does is lose. All she does is lose, but she is so lovable, so charismatic. Her entrance is amazing with her dance move and her singing in the lyrics to her song. Her charisma, she just has the it factor when she's in the ring. There's just something about her that you just are it's like a magnet. You're just attracted to her. That's what Maki Ito is. But Yuka Sakazaki has so much talent. She's the ace in Tokyo Joshi Pro, and she really got to show off her skills in her matches against Emi Saruka, as well as this past week with Ryo Mizunami. Ryo Mizunami, honestly, I only seen her once on AEW Double or Nothing, the first edition in 2019, but she really impressed me in this match with Yuka Sakazaki. Both ladies were hitting hard. It was this crisp movement throughout the matchup, and Mizunami winning surprised me because I really thought Yuka was the woman to beat on the Japan side, and I really wanted to see Yuka versus Britt Baker or Yuka versus Thunder Rosa in the finals. However, Mizunami winning does set up whoever's on the US side winning to have like a big time person to overcome, because she's now undefeated in AEW. She's 4-0. So they're kind of building her up as the person to beat in the finals. So we're going to see today on YouTube, on AEW's YouTube channel, it's going to be Thunder Rosa versus Nyla Rose, with the winner versus Mizunami on Wednesday. So I've been enjoying it. And if there's one match to go out of your way to watch, definitely go out of your way to watch Thunder Rosa versus Riho. Riho might be the most underrated women's wrestler in the world, because she had a banger with Serena Deeb in the first round of the tournament. She had a banger with Thunder Rosa on last night's special. I think Riho is someone that people need to start watching more. I think people didn't appreciate her as the first ever AEW Women's World Champion, but the fact that she's been gone for such a long time, and now she's coming back, and she comes back with 2 back-to-back really great matches. I think Riho is someone that's going to have a great rest of the year. Thunder Rosa is my person to win. I've interviewed Thunder Rosa. I've sponsored, True Heel Heat has sponsored for her promotion, Mission Pro Wrestling. So I am fully invested in Thunder Rosa to win this tournament. I want her to win tonight. I want her to win on Wednesday. And then I want her to become the next AEW Women's World Champion at Revolution. Thunder Rosa, I am the captain of your bandwagon from now on.
Mate, I think you should take some shares out, buddy. You know, I think it's worth an investment on your end, you know. Get down there. You're in New York. Get down there. Get down to the stock exchange, my friend. No, you're right. I think it's been good. I've actually enjoyed watching it, because, again, there's a lot of people that women I wasn't familiar with either. So it's been good for that. I kind of missed the WWE version of that they did a few years ago. I thought that was, you know, I'm not sure why they haven't ever really kept up with it themselves, because it was good. Even the Cruiserweight International one for the males was good as well. You know, like more of that, I welcome it, to be honest with you, because so much is samey, if that's not a word, but it is so familiar too much for me. But no, I'm with you there, buddy. Okay, well, we are going to be right back after this very short break. We're going to be checking out Clash Wrestling. Check it out with this video, and then myself and SP3 will be back after this quick video.
There's one man with potentially a better winning record than Cara Noir. What? He's cashing in! Cara Noir does not look happy, does not look comfortable right now. For the first time in his title reign, I think Cara Noir feels like he is facing a legitimate threat right now. Sammy Smooth is ready for this.
Very ready. He's encouraging him to ring the bell. And there is the bell.
Cara Noir looks... TJ, I don't think I've ever seen Cara Noir look this uncomfortable in a ring before. Oh! He refused to say he was ready to... Oh, yeah, now he's ready.
Ring the
now
bell.
He's ready.
Of course.
And we're back. We're on different sides of the screens. That's thrown me out a little bit, but we are back. Yeah, maybe this is our like half-time swap over. In any case, more stuff on its way. So don't forget, guys, if you want to check out Powered4SP3 please go over. And as I always say, use this code for 50% off your first month. Again, some of the videos we just checked out, Clash Wrestling. I keep saying this, it's like a TV series like Netflix. It's got a beginning and a finish. You don't get that too many times in wrestling. This is one of those ones. It's like, think about watching 12 episodes and you get a complete finish. You get all the finale with it, and very seldom that happens in wrestling, but it's very well done, very well constructed like that. And the other video, of course, focusing on our friends in Chicagoland Championship Wrestling, where this week, in fact, I have the promoter himself, Mr. John Bullard, coming on to talk to me. And, I think we might be in for a little bit of a debate, maybe an argument. I'm not sure. People are saying because of the whole Chicago connection influence that I have, but it's going to be good to talk to him. And furthermore, Mr. SP3, if I couldn't give people more than that, tomorrow night I'm back as well with none other than Powered 4's own Jessie. She's going to be on with me. We're going to be talking all things, anything and everything, not just wrestling, movies, bit of music, TV, and of course some wrestling. You've got to always have that in there. But that'll be coming and beginning tomorrow night around at 7 p.m. And following this, immediately, straight after this, 6 p.m. UK time, we have the interview that I did with the daughter of the legendary British Bulldog, Davy Boy Smith himself. And you're not going to want to miss that. I asked, it's one of those things, SP3, she's been here, there, and everywhere. So I was like, look, I don't want to kind of ask the same questions that she's probably been asked a dozen times. So this interview is very different. It goes in a very different flavor, so it's worth checking out. I'm not just saying that to sell you on an interview here, people, but I'm telling you it's a little bit different because I knew that she'd done so many interviews, and I can only imagine sometimes when you get the same questions, it's got to be hard to keep answering the same way. So very differently done. But that is following us here. That's going to be available on powered4.tv on our YouTube channel immediately following this, so stick around for that. But Mr. SP3, I think this moves very nicely into my true or false. This week it's back again. We've had some quizzes, but I'm bringing back some true or false. And I thought, you know what, to keep in with the flavor of stuff that is going on right now. Last week you've done an amazing job, by the way. I can't believe it how well he done with the whole elimination chamber. I mean, there was some dire questions in there, and I can't believe you managed to get them, to be quite honest with you. I swear he's got a wiki machine out somewhere that I'm not seeing, but nonetheless, I thought we'd keep in the flavor, and we keep with Davy Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, the soon-to-be Hall of Famer this year, and I thought I'll do a true or false on the man in question. So, Mr. SP3, let me ask you before we go through this, how familiar are you with the UK's own Davy Boy Smith?
I am more of a WWE fan of Davy Boy Smith, British Bulldog. So if there's earlier questions like of him and Dynamite Kid as the British Bulldogs or any of his time in the UK, you might stump me this week. You might get me on this one.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. No, of course. Now these ones I always find are the most stupidest. So don't take it too serious, SP3. Don't be ridiculous. Now we know you're the Oracle of Wrestling, but first and foremost, let's read the statements and let's see what Mr. SP3 goes for on our true or false. Davy Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, won the then WWF European Championship 3 times. True or false?
3 times? False.
How is he getting this? You're right, it is false. He actually was 2 times the European champion. I thought I was going to throw him out with that one because he's kind of synonymous with that European belt. I think in a lot of ways that was designed for him because of his popularity. And I mean, goodness knows whatever happened to that. I don't know if that'll ever return. I thought maybe NXT UK might see something similar, but we haven't, considering how many European wrestlers we have. Well done, Mr. SP3. Well done. Next, let's go for the next one here. He never won a title in WCW. True or false?
Man, that's actually tougher because he was in WCW 2 stints. One with Dreadlock.
Partner with Sting. Remember that? And then the Shockmaster came out
in
of
War
nowhere.
Games. Yes, in War Games. And then he had his run after the Montreal Screwjob. But
Absolutely.
you said the British Bulldog won a title in WCW, right?
He never won a title in WCW. Never won.
True.
It is true. It is true. You've got it completely right. I didn't know that until I looked that up earlier on. I wasn't too sure of his title record at all in WCW because WCW titles, for some reason, they're not very well publicized. Like they didn't really keep great records like WWE because of the different versions of WCW. They kind of changed a lot with their belts. Okay, this one's a good one, I think. Let's see if he gets this right. So he was a fully qualified rally driver.
A fully qualified rally driver?
Fully qualified rally driver. True or false?
That would be assuming that I know what a rally driver is.
Well, rally driver as in a car racing.
So he was a fully qualified race car driver?
Yep.
I mean
rally driving as in the stuff you see on the dirt and, with those guys.
I mean, this would make no sense because then he should have had Bob Sparkplug Holly's gimmick and not him. But this seems like a type of like fun little fact that would be in this type of quiz. So this is the most difficult one you've given.
What is he going to go with?
All the true and false. Man, I should have asked Georgia. I should have saw your interview before you dropped it up next. I'm gonna say true.
Dun,
See,
dun, dun.
I didn't know.
It was a dire one. It was a dire one. I could see it coming. But who would know? Who would know these? I mean, like wrestlers do have these ridiculous qualifications that never get used when they get to wrestling, and they never see it again. So
I should have said it's one of those. False. I said he would have been Bob Holly if this was true.
Yeah, he would have been. Okay, last one. This is a good one, I think. His middle name was really Boy. True or false?
Well, the last one was false, so I don't think you're going to do back-to-back false. So I'm going to go with true.
It is true. Ta-da. I didn't know that, I didn't find that out in the interview either, but by all accounts, there was a bit of a mistake made on the birth certificate where somebody wrote his sex and they wrote boy in the wrong area. And that's how it stuck. So it wasn't like somebody was just calling him like, Johnny Boy or that type of stuff you see around in wrestling. This was legit Davy Boy Smith. That is his full name. So that stuck around with him. But pretty cool when you think about it. Well done, Mr. SP3. I think psychology played a part into that with maybe the results towards the end. But not bad, it's still got a very high percentage there. In all this one. So well done, my friend. I'll give that one to you. Now, moving on, we've got here outrage on Wrestling Observer Awards. Tell us about what this outrage is, my friend, because, was it, I think it was you that said last week, Jon Moxley was the wrestler of the year, which I was quite surprised about. I'm not a massive Jon Moxley fan, if I'm honest, but I was still quite shocked. Even so, I know he's had a good year, but I don't know. Is that the best we've seen all year? I could be wrong. However, SP3 certainly thinks so. What is the upset? What is the causing chaos here then?
So this seems to happen every year around this time of the year. Wrestling Observer Awards is a part of the outlet, which is the Wrestling Observer newsletter for the famed writer Dave Meltzer. Basically, he has subscribers who subscribe to see the newsletter, they hear the radio shows that he does with Brian Alvarez or the ones that Brian Alvarez do with like Vinny, Tom Lawler, and all the subscribers get to vote at the end of the year on the awards in professional wrestling. That is one key thing that I do have to mention, because a lot of the outrage that I saw was of people saying, oh, Dave Meltzer picking all these awards, not giving it to WWE. Oh, Dave Meltzer always hating on WWE. He didn't vote on the awards. I just want to put that out there. It was the fans that voted on the awards. Yes,
yeah, I mean, Let me ask you, by all accounts, it's from when I used to subscribe, it was the readers get to do it, right? It's the subscribers, the then subscribers, and that's how it's always been. I think that's even things like with pay-per-views, matches, there's like a fan thing at the end of it. But a lot of people do get confused. They all think it's from Uncle Dave and he's the be-all end-all of everything. But no, he's getting these from his long, faithful, loyal fans, of course.
Not only readers and subscribers, it's also he gets some people from around like the wrestling media, writers, stuff like that also do probably subscribe to get a lot of their news, because a lot of the news in professional wrestling comes from Wrestling Observer and Dave Meltzer. But this is by the fans, and this is like over 10,000 or probably more people voting on these awards. So I should definitely say that out there. Now, the outrage this year, in previous years, it's also been the same. The outrage every year over the Wrestling Observer Awards is usually due to WWE fans that can't believe the WWE was so bad that no one voted for any of the positive awards. Like they're like their head is like exploding, like, how dare you? And they totally like missed the point that Bayley was the women's wrestler of the year, the women's MVP, and like the top 3 or 4 in that award were all from WWE, which if AEW got that one, then you fans got a point, because AEW did not treat their women well in 2020. So if they got that award, then you fans have a point. They're being a little biased. But WWE got the award for the division that they do care more than AEW about. So there's that. But Wrestler of the Year, I'm sorry. I understand, John. I understand we have a lot of people watching from the UK. And I was on Wrestling Travel when they did their awards, which was mostly from people from the UK voting. And they voted for Drew McIntyre to be the Wrestler of the Year. Okay, I'm just going to put this out there. I'm just going to say it because this is factual evidence that supports this. Drew McIntyre is not as great on the mic as Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley had better promos than Drew McIntyre in 2020. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that I can't remember one Drew McIntyre promo, but I can tell you Moxley had the promo after the pandemic telling you to call your grandmother. Moxley had the great face-to-face encounter with Eddie Kingston when they're cutting promos face-to-face, and he's telling him that I'm gonna make your mother proud. Yeah, I sat in your mother's kitchen eating dinner. Like, there was great promos that you can remember over the past 12 months of 2020 that Jon Moxley did. You can't do that for Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre was 100% consistent on pay-per-views. He always delivered in his WWE title opportunities, but so was Jon Moxley in 2020. He had a great match against MJF at All Out, a great match against Brody Lee on Double or Nothing, great match against Eddie Kingston at Full Gear, the great match with Kenny Omega at Winter is Coming, great match with Brian Cage at Fight for the Fallen. So yeah, they matched up very well when it came to just matches. But then you take into account that, the drawing aspect, it was kind of null and void. So you have to go on basically the ratings. Jon Moxley was a part of a show that stayed consistent with their ratings for 2020, while Drew McIntyre was the WWE champion for some of the lowest rated WWE Raw episodes in the past 30 years. So Drew McIntyre, due to those factual evidence, is not better than Jon Moxley in 2020. Maybe you could say a Kenny Omega should be in that conversation. I don't think so, because he was in a tag team. Jon Moxley is the best option for Wrestler of the Year. Tag Team of the Year, the Young Bucks were in 2 5-star matches, 2 of the greatest tag team matches of all time, with FTR and Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. Was there a WWE tag team that could even be in the top 5 of Tag Team of the Year? Let's just move on from that subject. But it goes on and on, like Feud of the Year, Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley, that deserved that. That felt more real. Yes, I do agree the top 10 was a little bit AEW heavy. The only 2 WWE feuds in there was Roman versus Jey Uso, which was deserving, and Edge versus Randy Orton, which was also deserving. But Bayley and Sasha should have been in that top 10. That was the only top 10 that I really had a big issue with, because Bayley and Sasha wasn't in there. But when you look at the list, when you look at all the awards, you can make significant arguments for every person that won an award from AEW of why they won it. It's not their fault that there was only two main companies running in 2020, that there was a global pandemic. So guys from New Japan would have got awards if they performed more, but they didn't. Guys in WWE would have performed more if would have got more awards if WWE had good booking in 2020. They didn't, and that's why they're there. I saw so many people outraged. The Fiend was the most overrated and the worst gimmick of the year. Was there a worse gimmick than The Fiend? I mean, The Fiend was a part of the Braun Strowman feud, which was awful. He was a part of this Randy Orton feud that is goofy, and he was a part of the worst match that I saw last year with Bill Goldberg. So why is anyone shocked that The Fiend got those two awards? It does not make sense. Yes, there might have been some gimmicks that you feel are worse, like Great Khan and Retribution. But what gimmick out of those three, including The Fiend, got the most attention in 2020? It was The Fiend. So The Fiend had more opportunities to be bad, and he was. That's why he's the worst gimmick of 2020. I can make sense of every award, but I'm just going to give those. The outrage doesn't make sense, and it happens every single year because WWE fans can't seem to understand WWE have not been having good years for probably the past 5 years. And shouts out to Mad Dog Mike Angus, Drew versus Randy Orton, the feud you voted for a feud of the year, as well as the feud you complained about 2 months before you voted for it as the feud of the year, was not even in the top 10 and wasn't even one of the honorable mentions. Just wanted to put that out there.
Well, there we go. He said it. Well, look, I'm never going to be a fan of Moxley. I am a fan of Moxley when I see him in New Japan. You know what it is for me, SP3? It's something very small. But I look at him, and in WWE, he kept wearing merchandise that said "lunatic," whatever it was. What was that thing he was calling?
Lunatic
And
Fringe.
I am a lunatic.
WWE.
I even wear the top that tells me that as well. And then I see him in AEW, and I'm like, he looks like, I don't know, like the guy down the road. Like the stuff he wears just doesn't do it for me. Now, if he came out in gear like he does in New Japan, I would take him a lot more serious. But sometimes I find his whole hardcore background is, I think he's got a lot more freedom in AEW where he can kind of say to them, look, this is me. Whereas I think another promoter might say, hang on a minute. We need to market you in a different way. If you're going to be the champion, you've got to look a certain way. And I think if he did, he would grow on me personally. But that's my opinion of the guy. But let me ask you this. For these people that are moaning, why don't they... The only way you're going to get around it is clearly there's not enough WWE fans that sign up to the Observer. So maybe go and sign up to the Observer and put your vote in for next year. Get it in there early. I'm sure Dave will appreciate that.
Thank you, John, because that was my
awards
last
are
point.
awards. Whoever comes out with awards, like we done an awards thing a couple of years ago on my podcast. It's the most ridiculous idea I ever had because no one's happy. Even if you let the fans vote, nobody's happy because there's some sort of conspiracy. So I give up on it in the end. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they just these people, like, they're looking into things too much. And like you say, you could always make an argument for just about anybody. If I think about some of the NXT UK guys who probably don't hardly get any mention at all, but someone like years gone by, like a Walter, who was always making ripples in this country, I never see him on there too much. So it's also about exposure as well and who watches what. And that's another big problem. But I completely agree with you. It's an opinion-based thing here. So it's like awards, wrestling, Dave Meltzer. You're just asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble. But
and
I think it's overblown.
You mentioned Walter. He won his third straight European MVP. So that's another WWE guy won.
I got to ask you, did the match get in there with Dragunov? Did that go anywhere?
It was in the top 10. Match of the year was Hangman Page and Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks. And I'm sorry, I don't see how you can argue any other match being better than that one. So, they were in the top 10. There was a bunch of other WWE like pay-per-view of the year. Takeover Portland was in the top 10. Royal Rumble was in the top 10. I just think that, like you said, if fans want to really change these awards, become a subscriber, become a reader, and vote on them. I voted on the awards. Guess what? not everyone that I picked to win an award won the award, but I pretty much had everyone that won in somewhere in my top 5, top 10 for each award. So I saw why these people won the award, and I don't understand why people are so outraged over people's opinions. And that seems to be the MO of people that hate Dave Meltzer, that they hate him for his opinion. Man, you are very much valuing his opinion by hating on it. You don't even realize it.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. Okay, let's move on quickly here then, because we've got some other news. New Japan Pro Wrestling announces merger. This is very interesting to me with their heavyweight title and IC title. Now, tell me a little bit here, SP3, as somebody who doesn't watch New Japan anywhere close to what you're going to be watching it, but what is the significance of this? And just give us a little bit of background on the titles in general and why this is being done. And by the way, I wish WWE would merge some of their bloody titles, I tell you.
And they did like a couple of, I think, like after the brand split when Triple H won like the heavyweight title.
Not enough, I tell you.
And then they brought it back because they were like, oh, we needed something for the Intercontinental title.
Enough.
But the IWGP Heavyweight and Intercontinental Championships were unified at Wrestle Kingdom 14 last year at the Tokyo Dome, with Tetsuya Naito defeating Kazuchika Okada to unify the titles. It's been unified for over a year now. When Kota Ibushi won the titles at this year's Wrestle Kingdom and defeated Jay White on the second night, he said that he wanted to merge both titles. He wanted them to become one because he felt the IWGP Heavyweight Championship represents being the strongest, while the IC title represents being the best. And he wanted to merge the both together to be the strongest and best title in professional wrestling. This past weekend, we had New Japan Pro Wrestling Castle Attack in Osaka, Joe Hall. The main event was Kota Ibushi defeating Tetsuya Naito for just the Intercontinental title. That was the first time that the double champion defended only one of the titles because, like I said, Kota Ibushi's goal is to merge the title, but Tetsuya Naito considers himself the greatest Intercontinental champion. He's won the title the most times, 6 times. So he wanted to take the title from Ibushi to deny him the opportunity to merge the titles, and he wanted to just take the title, never defend it, and just become the last champion and retire the title. He said if the title is going to be, thrown aside, he wants to be the guy to do it. So when Kota Ibushi won, basically New Japan made the announcement that they are officially merging both titles. But the part that I'm a little bit vexed on is the fact that by merging both titles, they are not merging the lineage of both titles, but they are creating a whole new lineage and a new championship belt to represent it. So it's going to be called the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. So it's going to be a new title to represent being the strongest and the best. I'm not too happy because I love the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, how it looks. It's probably my favorite title in all of professional wrestling. And the fact that, before championship matchups, you get a video package of all the past champions, and it makes all their heavyweight championship matchups really have that big time feel. I know a lot of people were upset because they feel like the IC title is being thrown aside and it has its own lineage and own history and was really since the Intercontinental title of like the early 90s, late 80s, this felt like the best secondary title in professional wrestling. But by merging both titles, they elevated the Intercontinental title. So by separating it after the fact, you are de-elevating it. So it's once again not going to be on the same level as the heavyweight title. So I understand merging the titles, getting rid of the IC title. I just wish the lineage for the heavyweight title can stay in pat. But the reason why I'm okay with the IC title getting aside is because the never openweight title has been elevated. Hiroshi Tanahashi is the champion. The US title has been elevated. It's the top title in New Japan Strong in the US side of New Japan with Jon Moxley as champion. The IWGP Junior Heavyweight title has been elevated with El Desperado being the new champion now. It just had the semi-main event at Wrestle Kingdom. So they have made the titles that they did have more important due to these titles being together. So the IC title is really not needed anymore. I just wish we can keep the lineage of the original IWGP Heavyweight Championship.
Man, I got to say, listening to you there, how refreshing it is that a company values their belts, that the titles mean something like, it's just something that we don't get a lot of, especially this side of things, WWE, even AEW to a certain extent. It's like I wish we could have more about Edge talking about being a champion and what that means and what that stands for. Whereas it's I think in their eyes, it's all about kind of the storyline has to make more sense than the actual title, which is a massive shame because, you know, that's what makes those belts so devalued, in my opinion. But New Japan, they've always done an excellent job. Like you say, they play that clip. So, like, even for me, somebody who doesn't watch it all the time, I instantly get a sense of how big that belt is, what it means to the person that's going to win it. And I feel like they do a great job protecting it. I'm so glad they haven't gone down the gimmick route. I thought when you said what they're going to call it next, or they're going to go Galaxy or something like WWE have done with their universe and all that ridiculous stuff. So that's something, you know, thinking back, maybe that's what the Ultimate Warrior should have done with his Intercontinental belt, you know, because that's the other thing with WWE. If you're an Intercontinental champion, it's almost like you have to drop that and then you go and win that. And it always happens every time. And I've been so disappointed not to see someone with the IC belt or the US title like go on and face the heavyweight champion. But like I say, it seems like the writers or whoever don't really value that as a story anymore about belts and titles and what it means and who the guy is, because there's two of them in one company, which is already hard enough as it is. And then, you know, world championships these days are just not the same. They really are not the same. But I'm glad in New Japan there's some value still given to it. So that's a cool thing for me. Right, just to sum up and end here, Mr. SP3, as we're coming to the end of our hour, but it's okay. WWE partners with A&E to bring in a new series. This was announced I think it was last week or the week before, but it does look really good. I've seen the trailer. I believe there's 2 different series. There's one about some treasure or something, some stuff that they're a series about memorabilia and things like this, which looks pretty cool. And then there's obviously one on the sort of WWE legends, I suppose. Now, a lot of people will think, well, we've seen a dozen of these already, and I get where people are coming from. But when it's done by somebody outside, it always does make me a little bit more happy because you kind of lose that bias to it as well. And it's done like a proper documentary that we're kind of more used to. And you know what? In this time of, you know, lockdowns and everything, documentaries have become the in thing. So it's like it makes perfect sense for WWE to do this and also have it on a different distribution, not just under the network, because again, it's like that series with Undertaker. Unfortunately, as good as it is, it's only going to be seen by the majority of the WWE audience. Nobody else is really going to pick up on that amazing story. And I do think if the casual fan watched the guy Mark Calloway behind the Undertaker, they get into it a little bit, but it's not something that's readily available. So with them doing this kind of thing, SP3, do you think if this becomes a success that WWE will look to do this sort of thing more often, and we may see them pulling away from their internal WWE network stuff and go more outside of the realms of other TV stations and whatnot?
I think that the reason why this deal was made now is because they're transitioning from, you know, just doing network documentaries to going to like these different like networks like A&E and kind of having a partner. Do I feel like it's gonna be, you know, a different quality than what we get on the network? No, because I think the network documentaries are really well done, honestly. I mean, they do have a WWE bias to it, but by them partnering with another network, we're still going to get that bias, but you're just going to see it from a different type of presentation standpoint. So I think that is good to kind of get them more eyes on them, because people that watch A&E might not be WWE fans, but they might catch the biography and be interested in it. I'm very interested in the Roddy Piper one that they're doing. I feel like they've done too many Stone Cold ones, so I don't think this one is going to show me anything that I haven't seen before. And it's been a while since we've seen like a Bret Hart or Mick Foley one, so those are going to be really good. So I think that this is something that WWE has looked at, because when you look at the early portion of the pandemic, honestly, the thing that kept me going during those early months of the pandemic, besides my family and my newborns, was Dark Side of the Ring. Dark Side of the Ring being that documentary and really giving us content, feeding us content every single week, was the thing that all wrestling fans were talking about more than the news going on in the wrestling world. Like the news in the wrestling world during the early part of the pandemic was mostly bad, with WWE releasing talent, AEW and WWE, still performing through a pandemic. So Dark Side of the Ring was where a lot of conversation was created among our community. So I think that if A&E and WWE can do that with these documentaries, then it should be considered a success.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think what makes a good documentary, especially when they get the people on themselves and sit down and do that interview, what sometimes helps from having the outside perspective is that internally, I doubt very much WWE would push Shawn Michaels, for instance, to talk about too many of his addictions, and they probably would want to steer away from that. Whereas somebody from the outside, they could kind of broach it a little bit. I'm not saying they're going to say everything, but I think that what it's about for me is it's like, how many times have we heard of now about the Montreal Screwjob? Like, how many more variations and versions are you going to get of it? It's unreal. But it's always one of those things that people will tune into if there's like a snippet of new information that we never knew about. So yeah, Bret Hart on it as well. I'm kind of glad. Mick Foley, I know, is another guy on it, which, again, he's not fully devoted to WWE, so he can be a bit more like out of the box. I mean, that's the only good thing with Steve Austin. The bloke, he doesn't really care about what he says, even when he's on their podcast show, seems to go off on what he wants to talk about, which is kind of a unique thing. They seem to let him get away with a lot more than others, which is not a bad thing. But yeah, going to be interested to see that. I believe that takes place a week after WrestleMania this year, and every episode, I believe, is 2 hours long, so that'll keep us going for a while. Anyway, want to thank you as always, Mr. SP3, for coming on and talking wrestling, man. I feel like we've covered a lot here. We've gone just about here, there, and everywhere. It's been a blast talking to you as always, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure talking about wrestling with you. And yeah, we talked about a little bit of everything, some true and false. So I hope that people were entertained. So they drop us a like and share this video with all their wrestling fans.
Absolutely, my friend. And as I always say, you're one of the most busiest people out there. But what have you got planned in the next 7 days, my friend? Where can we find you?
I got a busy 7 days.
Busy. Blimey.
Yes.
Ready for this one.
Wednesday, I'll be on the Wrestling Daily YouTube channel with Alex McCarthy live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. BST. You could also see me on Thursday live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. BST on the Wrestling Travel YouTube channel on their weekly podcast with Justin Clapper, Danny, and Mad Dog Mike Angus. You could also find me on Friday twice on the Sports Keto Wrestling YouTube channel. I'll be doing their pay-per-view preview for AEW Revolution. I'll be announcing this Wednesday on Wrestling Daily who my co-host is. And Friday after SmackDown, immediately following SmackDown, I'll be with Rick Ucchino live on the Sports Keto Wrestling YouTube channel for Smack Talk, talking all things SmackDown from that past Friday.
Wow, there you go, people. There you go. Gonna need a file of facts, mate, not a diary.
Oh, and I'll be live on the True Hill Heat YouTube channel. We got a point because it's WrestleMania season. True Hill Heat YouTube.
That's our new thing now. That's the new thing. WrestleMania.
True Hill
WrestleMania
Heat.
Season. Yeah, that's great, my friend. Yeah, of course, you can't forget your own thing. My God, that shows how busy you are. You're forgetting, where the true money is there, my friend. Your own brand. My goodness. No, that's fantastic. I'll be back tomorrow with Jesse. We're going to be talking about anything and everything. And then Wednesday, I'm on with John Bullard from Chicagoland Championship Wrestling. We're going to be talking about one of the real gems on Powered4.TV, in my opinion, studio wrestling with a modern day production, as I call it. Really, really good. And yeah, we've got loads more stuff. Don't forget, people, right now available on Powered4.TV is the interview I have done with Georgia Smith. That is now available. Go and check that out of your way. And of course, myself and SP3 will be back next Monday for more wrestling news. We'll see what happens in the next 7 days. But yes, thank you as always, my friend. I hope you don't forget any of those things, because that's the thing, you know, with all this stuff. You don't want to forget. I almost forgot something the other day, and that would have been a nightmare, to be honest with you. So I feel like you are needing a file of facts now, not a diary, a file of facts, my friend. But yeah, good talking to you as always. We'll see you all next week.